Hi there, thanks for stopping by. In today's video, we're going to take a look at one of the buttons in my thread wrapped buttons book. This one I imaginatively named a framed square. It is, however, a traditional design, primarily from the 19th century. It's an easy button to make and a little bit of a step up from the death's head button. So let's get started. In my book, this particular button is worked with number 12 perle on a 20mm button mold. Today I'm going to use number 8 perle, so I'm going to move up to a 25mm button mold. You can adjust any of the patterns to any different thicknesses of threads. All you need is a little bit of practice to do that. But it's very easy. If you didn't want to move up, you would just put less threads on for the instructions. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to mark off quarters. I'm going to use our new button wheels, which are a series of 4 double-sided engraved steel discs with different combinations on them. Just get it so that the light's all right, with different combinations engraved into them to help you mark out your wheels. If you have our original circle gauge, because we only want 4, you'll be fine for that. The button wheels are helpful when you're getting into much larger divisions. So for marking on a flat disc, the easiest thing to do is to simply, and I'm going to hold it at a slight angle so that I can see better, is to line up the center of the button mold with the dot in the center, and you can sort of visually see whether or not you've got it lined up. And then I'm going to mark 4 because that's all that this requires. This design requires a foundation cross of 4. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different with this particular video, and I'm going to show you how I write my instructions as we go. So hopefully this will help you. So if I take this tag, for instance, okay, so when I want a foundation cross of 4, I will write a foundation cross 4, so that's 4 points, and then for this particular button we're going to use 5 ends, so it will then say 5E. Okay, so what's an end? An end is 1 length of thread. So at this point you can either, to get started, you can either just hold the thread at the back of the button or use the beeswax method, which is to rub the back of the button mold with beeswax, the sides of the button mold with a bit of beeswax. Now what this does is it just adds a little bit of a tacky feel and helps to hold the thread in place. Always try to wrap from bottom to top. I do not know why. It just works. It just helps you to get a straighter wrap. So from bottom to top, we're going to do 1 right at the center where the marks join. Now we want 5 ends. This is 1 end. So I'm going to put 2 to the right and 2 to the left. And now I'm going to hold that thread at the back of the button and I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to do the same. So 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that is our foundation cross. Now the next thing that we need to do is we now need to work our sides. So imagine that each of these quarters is a side. So here's a little diagram to show you. So we've moved the foundation cross so that it's an X, and then we have side A, B, C, and D. So this is the way that we turn. So what we're going to do is on A, B, C, and D, we're going to place one end, rotate the button, and we're going to do that for 4 rounds. And we're going to work from the center out. So that will be written down with an arrow to tell you to go center out, and then A to D, one end, rotate. So we're going to rotate counterclockwise, and then for however many rounds. So in this case, it's 4 rounds. Okay, so let's see that visually. So that's one end, not quite in the center, very nearly. You just want it slightly over to the right because that's A. Then we're going to rotate anti-clockwise and do the same on B. I'm going to rotate again. Repeat for C. And then rotate again. And repeat for D. Now because we've said A to D, that means that's 1 round. So now I need to do another 3 of these, working out from the center. So as you can see, I'll get a little stick. As you can see, each of these now has 4 threads. Okay, and that's creating a little box shape at the center of the button. Now we need to cut a length. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, if you let go now, everything's going to fall off. So I'm just going to clip that end into my 3rd hand just so that I'm free to trim this and thread a needle without worrying too much about it. Now, this is our first thread laid down when we did the foundation wrap. So you'll see that it will very often move a little bit. So what you want to do is you just want to secure that down. That's when you first change direction. So if you pull that in at this stage, that will secure it nicely. And then really you can just weave through at the back and knot or not. Entirely up to you. So now we need a second color. Now to add a second color to a thread wrapped button, the easiest way is to thread the end and just put it under, wrap it round. You could use a knot if you prefer, and then just trim that end out of the way. You're just basically making sure that that is secure. So now the second stage is to work color 2. So let's write this down so that you can see how I write it. But this time we're going to work from the outer edge in towards the center. So now it's A to D, one end, rotate. Now for the original design it says for 5 rounds. Because I'm using a larger thread and a larger button, I may have to adjust this just so that it works on this one. So we'll see. It probably won't be a direct translation, as it were. Also, when I have the asterisk there, that's telling you to repeat that. Okay, so let's see. So where are we at? When you have laid a wrap, the last wrap that you laid will always have nothing, in fact I can show you better with the needle, will have nothing covering it. Okay, so you can see that there's nothing actually over the top of that thread. So that was the last one you wrapped, so that will be D. You want to get back into A position. Okay, and then because we're working from the out in, we want to anchor it on that foundation cross, and that's 1. And then again, we'll still rotate, and that arrow is showing you that you're rotating anti-clockwise, and repeat. So this section that I'm doing in this color is essentially a death's head wrap. So that's going all of the way around, and now we're back to A. And we're going to repeat that to fill this space. So as I said, it may be 5 rounds, it may be more. I think it will be more. In the end, all I needed was 1 extra round. So that's 6 rounds, so therefore 6 threads on each of these spaces. Now, if you need to, go ahead and tweak a little bit. Basically what you're looking for is for your threads to be as straight as possible, and also obviously to be taut. So again, just pop into my third hand so it doesn't all fall apart. Thread up my needle. I'm just going to redo that last round because it came a little bit loose. There we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then at the back you'll see this square design. Now I would advise you, because of the way that this is wrapped, to actually work a little back stitch around these corners of this square. I've not had to use a stick at the back for this because it's quite shallow. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go and watch my how to make a death's head button video, you'll see how you can add a stick at the center to help hold these threads. But of course I didn't need to do that because we've not come right to the center back. Now that should help to hold those nice and taut. So all I need to do there is then knot and thread through. And there is our finished button. framed square. Very original design, design name. Many of these buttons had no names, and so the names that I use are names that I primarily just came up with, or sometimes other designers have come up with. So now the next question that I get asked a lot with thread wrapped buttons is, how do I then sew this on? Well, if you are being authentic or historically accurate, you will just sew this on to your fabric, onto your coat, directly through the threads at the back. Button collectors will often call this a thread back button. There's no extra anything to deal with for sewing it on. I do have a video with a lot of different ideas for button backs, because as a modern thing, many of us don't quite feel right just having a back that looks like this. You expect something really, really fancy or really, really tidy because we're used to buying manufactured buttons, not handmade buttons. So I'll pop a link below to that video where I discuss, it was a previous live. I'll probably have to make it into a not live video, I guess, but where I talk about backs of buttons. But as I say, the easiest way is just to stitch through the threads at the back when you are creating, stitching into place. I would suggest that if you do that, wherever possible, use a different colored thread, because then if you want to remove your button, you will be able to see what threads you need to cut. Now obviously if you're doing something matching to a garment, that's not always possible. So another question I'm asked with thread wrap buttons is, can they be washed? Well, no. If you have used a wooden button mold of any description, you should not wash them. However, you can use acrylic shapes, and then so long as you know that your thread is washable and that your stitches and your wraps are all nice and tight, then you can gently wash it. Wrapped buttons could have a tendency to come loose in the wash. Definitely don't, you know, spin it at high speeds or anything like that. But a gentle wash is possible so long as your materials are washable and you know that your threads are nice and firmly in place. And there we have it. As you can see, that's quite a quick and easy button to make, and a really good button for practicing thread wrapped designs. My book is available on my website at Gina-B as well as all of the different tools and materials that I've been using today. Thanks very much for watching. Do please click like, hit subscribe, click that notification bell. You'll be notified when I next upload a video, and in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Bye bye for now.